Yes, hello friends, I'm Sunil Desai and welcome to Galaxy Online Learning, a division of Galaxy Tutorials. Okay friends, so today we are going to study the remaining chapter of 10th CBSE Geography subject. We were studying about manufacturing industries chapter number 6. Okay, and in the last lecture we saw what what is the meaning of manufacturing industries. Then we also saw the different how they are classified, different types of industries. And today we are going to go in detail about this different types of industries, manufacturing industries. Okay, so first we'll go to the see India is an agrarian country. Mostly the economy is there dependent mostly on agriculture. So we are first going to study about the agro-based industries. Agro-based industries means industries whose raw material come from the primary sector, that is the agriculture sector. Okay, for example, cotton mills, or silk textiles, or jute, or tea, coffee, sugar. All these industries they get their raw material from agriculture. Okay, so we are going to study first this agro-based industries, and the most important or the unique industry of among these agro-based industries is the textile industry. It is plays a very important role in the economy of India. Why? Because I'll tell you, nearly of the total production, industrial production of India, 14% comes from the textile industry. Out of the total industrial production of India, 14% comes from the textile industry, and the amount of employment generation in this industry is vast. Nearly 35 million people of India are directly working in this industry. Leave aside the indirect workers working in other industries which are dependent on this industry. So, 35 million people are directly working in this industry. Okay, then it generates a foreign exchange. The earnings of foreign exchange are around 24.6% of our 24.6% of the total foreign exchange which we get because of the manufacturing industry, out of which 24.6% is only from the textile industry, and it is unique because it contributes to around 4% of the total GDP of India. How much? 4% of the total GDP of India, and it is the only industry which is self-reliant and complete in the value cycle. Means right from the raw material till the last finished products, everything comes from this industry only. You don't have to depend on something outside other industries. Okay, right from the raw material till the finished product, means cotton till the garment. Okay, all this is come from this industry on the textile industry. That's why it's called a self-reliant and value and an industry which is complete in the value cycle. Okay, now in this textile industry, the most important industry is the and the unique industry is the cotton textiles. Okay, the cotton textiles. See, in India, cotton has been manufactured since ancient times. Okay, since ancient times, cotton has been manufactured in India. Okay, first the cotton was produced. Cloth was produced by hand spinning and by handloom weaving techniques. Later in the 18th century, power looms came. Okay, means motor on the power looms running on motor power looms. See, during the rule of the Britishers, what happened was that this industry, which was doing well in the 18th century, got a setback. Why? Because the Britishers used to take raw material from here, the good quality cotton, because India produced very good quality cotton. Okay, used to take to England, and from there they used to bring mill-made cloth and sell it in India. Now this mill-made cloth was more cheaper compared to the Indian handloom. Okay, so that's why this industry got a setback. The first successful textile mill was established in Mumbai in the year 1854. Okay, and as you recall, during the World Wars, the First World War and the Second World War, since this World War was going, there was a large demand for cotton textiles. Okay, because cotton you were needed for the uniform, for the cloth, for the tent, everywhere cotton was needed. So there was a large demand at that time during the war, and this helped in the development of the cotton textile industry. See, as on 30th November 2011, there were around 1,946 cotton textile mills in India, out of which 80% were in the private sector and the rest in the cooperative and the public sector. Okay. Apart from these 1,946 mills, there were many small power looms. Okay, small factories. We had around 4 to 10. They are not called industries. They are small power looms. Okay. See, nowadays this cotton industry is mostly concentrated in which states of India? In Maharashtra and Gujarat. Okay. The reason is that the availability, first thing is the availability of raw material. You get good cotton in the nearby areas. Okay. So in the state of Maharashtra and Gujarat, you have more cotton textile industries. One reason is availability of raw cotton, then availability of market, good transport system, availability of a port or harbor to export cotton yarn. Okay, so this has contributed to its localization in this particular area of Gujarat and Maharashtra. Okay, now this industry has a very close link with agriculture because it provides livelihood to many farmers, right? Because cotton, raw material is cotton. Then people who work as cotton ball pluckers to pluck cotton balls from the field, there is a lot of employment is generated. Okay, then workers engage in ginning, spinning, weaving, then dyeing, designing, packaging, tailoring and sewing. So there are so many processes in this cotton industry, right from the raw material till the finished garment. There are so many processes that because of all these different processes, you need a lot of human force. Okay, so you need a lot of labor to work, and this leads to a vast quantity of employment generation in this industries. Okay, so this industry also creates support for other industries like the chemical industries which prepare dyes, because you need dye for the cloth. Okay, then the mill stores, then for the packaging materials, then the engineering mills, because you need machinery. Lot of machinery is needed. Okay, in a textile industry. So all these other industries are many other industries are also depend on this unique industry, that is the textile industry. Okay, that's why it has a lot of importance in the economic growth of India. Okay. Still today, if you see, spinning is mainly centralized in Maharashtra, Gujarat and Tamil Nadu. Okay. So, but weaving is not centralized in such places. It is mostly decentralized. Okay. It is done on numerous of places. Okay. So, why it is so is to provide scope for incorporating traditional skills. Like you must have heard of Paithani sari, the Kanjivaram, the South silk. So all these are traditional saris or traditional cloth, and you need to get it viewed in that particular area. That's why it is decentralized. Okay. The India has world-class production in spinning. The spinning yarn produced by India is competitive. It can compete with the global market. Whereas The weaving is done by handloom, power loom in mills. And then you have the khadi, the handspun khadi. It also provides large scale employment, okay, to weavers in their homes. India, the yarn, the cotton yarn of India is of a very high quality. It can compete very easily in the global market. So there is a lot of demand for Indian cotton yarn. India exports cotton yarn to Japan, to USA, to UK, to Russia, to France, to many East European countries. Then it exports to Nepal, Singapore, Sri Lanka, and even in African countries. So the export of yarn is tremendous, okay, because of its quality. Okay, because of the quality of yarn, it has been exported throughout the world. India has the second largest installed capacity of spindles in the world. For spinning, you need spindle, and this spindle, the second largest company after China. Okay, the number of spindles are in India. How many spindles? You can just imagine 43.13 million spindles you have in India. That was this was in 2011-12. That is around 18 to 19 years back. Since the mid 18s, the spinning sector has received a lot of attention, and they have developed spinning to a very high quality. We have a large share in the world trade of cotton yarn. It is around 25% of the cotton yarn in the world trade comes from India. However, our trade in garments is only 4%. Yarn we have 25% share, but garments is just 4%. That shows that our spinning mills are very competitive. They can compete the global market. But the weaving, knitting and processing unit cannot use this in the Indian weaving or the knitting industry can't use this high quality yarn. Okay, because here we don't have that much modern factories in India except for a few. So most of the yarn is exported, whereas the Indian garment manufacturer, they import yarn from outside because they can't use that high quality of yarn in India, which we export. So they buy a little less, you can say, not that of a better quality which we export from outside. Okay. See, yarn is sold at, but there's a problem because of this. Why Because yarn is sold at just 85 rupees a kg, whereas a finished garment like a trouser will cost 800 rupees per kg. So just see the difference. Okay, 10 times difference in the value of the cloth. So India is losing on it because it's not using high quality yarn. So although we have made significant increase in the production of good quality long staple cotton, we produce somewhere around 356 lakhs bales of 170 kg each during 2011-12. Okay, the need to import is still felt because we are not using that high quality yarn here in India. Because here the power supply is erratic. There is no continuous power supply. And the machinery also needs to be developed. Okay, it has to be upgraded in the weaving and the processing factories. Okay, in the weaving factory industry or in the processing industry, the machinery which we use is still not upgraded. Okay, so other problems which we face is the labor is not efficient. The output of labor is less, and there is a stiff competition from the synthetic fiber industry. Okay, so cotton has, because now people like smooth cloth, so cotton has a competition from synthetic fiber industry, means the machine made fiber. Now let's come to the another important textile industry after cotton. From cotton, the next important industry, the second one, is the jute industry. Okay, India is the largest producer of jute in India. Sorry, in the world. Okay, India is the largest producer of raw jute and jute goods and stands second place as an exporter only after Bangladesh. Bangladesh is the first, is the topmost exporter of jute. Okay. There were about 80 jute mills in India in 2010-11. How many? Around 80 jute mills. Most of these are located in West Bengal, mainly along the banks of the Hooghly River. Okay, you see, most jute is produced where? And this is the area, the banks of Hooghly River. So that is the reason we have jute industry, jute textile industry also in this region only, and that too in a narrow belt. The belt of jute industry is very narrow. It is 98 kilometers long. You have so many jute industries, 98 kilometers, but the width is just 3 kilometers, just on the banks of the Hooghly River. Okay. The first jute mill was set in Kolkata in 1859 at Rishra. Remember this word, Rishra. The first jute mill set up in Kolkata in Rishra in 1859. Many times it comes for 1 mark question. After partition in 1947, what happened when we got independent? India was there was partition. Okay, into Pakistan and India. So most of the jute producing area went into the East Pakistan, that is what we call today is Bangladesh, and the jute industry remained in India, where the jute producing area went into Bangladesh. Okay. Now, what are the factors responsible? Why you have so many jute industries in the Hooghly Basin? What is the reason? The reason is that inexpensive water transport. Jute can be transported through this big river Hooghly. Okay, and this is transportation is through the water. This is very less expensive. Second thing, it is supported by a good network of railways, roadways and waterways. The railway, roadway and waterway network is very good. Okay, then there is the Hooghly River has abundance of water. It's a perennial river, 24 hours, 12 months a year. You have water in the river. Okay, it being a perennial river. So, abundant water is there, and for the processing of jute textiles, you need plenty of water. Okay. Another important thing is that to have jute textiles in this area is that the labor available is very cheap. Labor comes from from Bengal, the neighboring Odisha, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh. Okay, and this is labor is very cheap. Another important thing is Kolkata is very near, and since Kolkata is very near, this urban center, that Kolkata, provides the industry with banking facilities, insurance facilities, and the port facility to export jute textiles. Okay. In 2010-11, the jute industry was supporting the number of workers working in the jute industry were 3.7 lakhs directly. Okay, somewhere around 3.7 lakh people were directly working in this jute textile industry, and around 40 lakhs, imagine 40 lakh were employed in the industry allied to jute, means which are dependent on the jute textile industry. Okay, they are engaged in cultivation of jute, marginal farmers, small farmers. Okay, so 40 lakh people are small and marginal farmers are involved in production of this jute. Okay, and many lakhs of people are indirectly working for this jute industry, like during in the transport, in the packaging industry. There's so many people working. Okay, so the difficulties which this industry faces now is stiff competition in the international market from synthetic substitutes. Instead of gunny bags, plastic bags have come. Right? So that is a big stiff competition in the international market. Then there is also stiff competition from other countries who produce jute. For example, Bangladesh, Brazil, Philippines, Egypt, and Thailand. However, the demand for jute is increasing internally, that is in our own country, because of certain government policies, certain mandatory things which government has made, like banning of plastic. Okay, so to stimulate demand, the products need to be diversified. In 2005, a national jute policy was formulated. Why it was formulated? What was the object? The object was to increase productivity of jute textiles, increase their quality, then and also ensuring good prices for the farmers who produce jute. Okay. The main market for jute industry are where we export are USA, Canada, Russia, then the United Arab Republic, UK, and Australia. Okay. Now people are getting more and more concerned about the environment, and government is taking some strict decisions, some policies government has made to ban plastic. So this has helped to develop or increase the jute industry. In the growth, it has helped in growth of this industry. Okay. So that was all about the jute industry, which is also a very important industry in India. And the third important agro-based industry in India is none other than the sugar industry. Okay, India stands second in the production of sugar. Okay, the first place. Okay, the first one is for sugar is. India is the second largest producer of sugar and the number one producer of gur, that is jaggery and khansari. See, now the raw material used in this industry, sugar industry, is what? Sugar cane. And sugar cane is a bulky raw material. It's very heavy to carry and quite a big thing to carry. Okay, so during its holidays in transportation, as it gets dried up, this sugar cane, the sucrose content reduces. So it's necessary to have the sugar industry near the place where sugar cane is produced. Okay, so when sugar cane is produced, you have sugar industries. So that transportation is less. Okay. So ideally, they should be located. Mills should be located near the production area. In 2010-11, there were around 662 sugar mills in the country spread over Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Gujarat. Okay, along with a few in Punjab, Haryana and Madhya Pradesh. 60% mills are in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. But this industry is seasonal in nature, so it is ideally suited in the cooperative sector. Okay, in a particular season only sugar is prepared. Means after the harvest, then only you can prepare sugar. You can't 12 months of the year you don't produce sugar. Okay, after the harvest time. See, now what you see is that most of the mills, sugar mills, are shifting towards the south, that is towards Maharashtra, especially in Maharashtra. Why? To western states. Why? Because first thing is that the climate. Here it is much cooler compared to Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. So what happens is that the quality of sucrose in Maharashtra, sugarcane, the quality of sucrose is much better in Maharashtra. Second thing, the sugarcane don't get dried up since it is cool compared to Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Okay, and moreover, the cooperative units which run this cooperative factories which run this sugar industry are very successful, more successful you can say in Maharashtra than in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Okay, so that is why you have many sugar industries here in Maharashtra. Major challenges or the major difficulties which this industry, sugar industry face is old and inefficient methods of production. Sugarcane is produced in an old way, not an efficient, means you can't have more good quality of sucrose coming out of the sugarcane. So that's one of the challenge which this industry is facing. Then the transport delay in reaching cane to factories. You can't afford to delay your transport because that will lead to dryness of the cane. So, and the third most important challenge which this industry is facing is the how to use the bagasse. Okay, bagasse means what? What you call in Marathi the chotha, means sugarcane. After removing the juice, what remains of the sugarcane is called the bagasse. So how to use this bagasse, where to use this? Nowadays they are using this bagasse and preparing of paper. Okay, instead of wood they are now using bagasse. Okay, so that's one of the way to make use of this bagasse, so you can get good quality paper at a cheaper rate. Now, after the textile industry, that is the agro-based industry, we have seen three types of agro-based industries. One was the textile industry, one was the jute industry, jute textiles, and third was the sugar industry. Now let us come to another important industry in India, and that is the mineral-based industry. Now this mineral-based industries, what is it? They use their raw materials. What is their raw material? Their raw material is mineral ores. Okay. So some of the industry, the most important industry in this mineral-based industry is the iron and steel industry. Okay. This is also called the basic industry, iron and steel industry, because the produce or the product of this industry is used as a raw material in other industries. Okay. Other industries may be heavy industries, medium industries or light industries. But many of the industries, mostly all the industries use iron as a raw material, or they need it for their construction. They need it to make the manufacturing, the machinery. They need it to build the plants, iron. So, iron and steel is the basic industry. So, because steel is needed to manufacture a variety of engineering goods, construction material, defense, medical, telephonic, scientific equipment, and many consumer goods. Okay. Production and consumption of steel is considered to be the index of a country's development. Means that country which produces and uses maximum amount of steel is considered to be a more developed country. Okay. Iron and steel is a heavy industry because all the raw material which is used in this industry is all heavy. Okay. You use iron ore, you use coking coal and limestone. All these are heavy. They are used in the steel industry in the formula of ratio of 4:2:1. Means four shares of iron ore along with 2 shares of coking coal and 1 share of limestone is used in the manufacturing of steel. Okay. Sometimes some quantity of manganese is also used. Why? To make the steel hard. Okay. So naturally, now tell me, if the raw material is heavy, it's a heavy industry, so naturally where their factory should be? Near the mines. Okay, that's why you have so many industries in the Chota Nagpur area. Okay, in Chota Nagpur area you have many industries, steel industries. In 2010-11, with 72.2 millions of tons of steel production, India ranked fourth among the world crude steel producers. Okay, India stood fourth with how many? 72.2 million tons of crude steel. It is the largest producer of sponge iron. Okay, it is the largest producer of sponge iron. In 2010-11, the per capita consumption of the steel in our country was only around 49 kgs per annum against the world average of 182 kgs per annum. So in the world, on an average, 182 kgs of steel is used per annum, whereas in India it's just 49 kgs. Okay. Now, why is this per capita consumption less in so low in India? The main reason for this is high cost and limited availability of coking coal. Coking coal is not much available in India, so that is where, and it is and it costs quite high. Then the low productivity of laborers. The labor which we use, which work in the industry, their productivity is low, and the electricity supply, because you need furnaces, burning furnaces, always to melt that, to smell for smelting. Okay, so the electric supply is very erratic. Okay, you don't have a continuous supply of electricity, and we have very poor infrastructure. Okay, that is the result why the per capita consumption of steel is less in India. Okay. Mini steel plants are what are mini steel plants? Are small and have electric furnaces. They use steel scrap or sponge iron. Means the mini steel plant, what they use? They don't use ore. They use steel scrap. What you give for bhangar, that bhangar wala, what sells it to this mini steel plants. Okay, and the mini steel plant prepares steel or manufactures steel from this bhangar iron. Okay, so they have re-rollers that use steel ingots as well. They produce mild and alloy steel of given specification. Whereas an integrated steel plant, a big steel plant is large, handles everything in one complex. Everything is there in one complex. A very, very large industry. Right from putting raw materials to steel making or rolling or shaping steel, everything is done in that single unit. Okay. Most of the public sector undertakings market their steel through SAIL, that is the Steel Authority of India Limited. In the 1950s, China and India produced almost the same quantity of steel. But today, China is the largest producer of steel. Till 1950 means some 70 years back, the production of steel was equal in China and India. But now China has gone far ahead compared to India. China is at the same time also the world's largest consumer of steel. In 2004, India was the largest exporter of steel, which accounted to 2.25% of the global steel trade. Okay, so India alone traded around 2.25% of the global steel trade. So, just as I told you, Chota Nagpur Plateau, there you have the maximum steel mills. Why? Because the availability of raw material. Okay. Here, because in this area you have low cost of iron ore, high grade raw materials are available, labor is cheap, and there is a vast growth potential in the home market, that is in the Indian market. India is an important iron and steel producing country in the world. Okay, but we are not able to perform to our full potential. Why? Mainly because high cost and limited availability of coking coal. Second, just as I told you, low productivity of labor. Third is irregular supply of energy, and fourth is the infrastructure is in India is very poor. See, we also import good quality steel from other countries. However, the overall production of steel is sufficient enough to meet the domestic market. Okay? So, liberalization and foreign direct investment, because of FDI, foreign direct investment, this industry has got a boost, means it's going, okay, with the efforts of private entrepreneurs. So, there is a need to allocate resources for research and development to produce steel more competitively, that is, of a good quality steel, so that you can market it in the world market. Okay. Now, after the iron and steel industry, the other important industry, which is mineral based, is the aluminium smelting. Aluminium smelting is the second largest important metallurgical industry in India. Okay, aluminium smelting is the second largest mineral based industry in India. Aluminium, as you know, is very light, it is resistant to corrosion, it is a good conductor of electricity, it is a good conductor of heat, it is malleable, that is, you can give it a different shape, and it becomes strong when it mixes with other minerals, okay, other metals. Therefore, this particular aluminium, okay, this metal is used for the manufacturing first of aeroplanes, okay, then utensils, electrical wires, okay. So slowly it is gaining substitute as a substitute for steel, okay, substitute for copper, substitute for zinc, substitute for lead, okay. So that is the importance of aluminium. Aluminum smelting plants in the country are located, where they are located? They are located in Odisha, they are located in West Bengal, in Kerala, in Uttar Pradesh, in Chhattisgarh, and also in Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu. In 2008-9, India produced over 15.29 lakh million tons of aluminium. So, which is the raw material used in the production of aluminium? That is bauxite. Okay. So, this bauxite is very bulky. It is dark reddish in color. It's a rock, in fact. Okay. So, here in the flow chart on page number 74, figure 6.8, they are given how aluminum is manufactured in an aluminum industry. First, bauxite, the raw material, it is taken to the factory. There it is crushed and alumina is dissolved. Then it is bulk or shifted to the site of smelter where it has been smelting. Okay. Then you calcinate petroleum coke from a refinery and pitch from a colliery. Okay. So what you see is that this particular aluminum industry is another most important industry in the mineral based category, raw materials based on mines. Okay. Now the next industry is the chemical industry. This chemical industry is not an ancient industry, but now it is growing at a very fast speed. It contributes approximately to 3% of the GDP. Okay, out of the total GDP, 3% comes from this chemical industry. It is the third largest in Asia. The Indian chemical industry is third largest in Asia and occupies the 12th place in the world. Small world in terms of its size. It comprises both large and small scale manufacturing units. Okay. Rapid growth has been seen in both inorganic and organic sectors. Inorganic chemicals include sulfuric acid, which is used in the manufacture of fertilizer, which is used in the manufacture of synthetic fibers, it is used in the manufacture of plastics, it is used in the manufacture of adhesives, then used in the manufacture of plant paints, dyes, etc. Nitric acid, alkalis, soda ash is used to make glass or to make soap and detergents. Okay. These industries are spread not only in a particular area but in different parts in our country. Okay. Now why this is so? Because organic chemicals include petrochemicals, which are used in the manufacturing of synthetic fibers or synthetic rubber, means artificially made fiber, artificially made rubber or plastics, then dyestuffs, drugs and pharmaceuticals. Organic chemical plants are located near oil refineries or petrochemical plants. Basic chemicals undergo processing to further produce other chemicals that are used for industrial application or for agriculture or can be used directly in the consumer market. Okay. Now let us come to another important industry after chemical industry is the fertilizer industry. The fertilizer industry is centered around the production of nitrogenous fertilizers, mainly the urea. Then the phosphatic fertilizers, different types of fertilizers. These are the nitrogenous fertilizers, then you have the phosphatic fertilizers and ammonium phosphate and complex fertilizers which have a combination of nitrogen, they also have phosphorus and potash. Potash is entirely imported as the country does not have any reserves of commercially usable potash or potassium compounds in any form. So what we have to do is we have to import potash totally. India is the largest producer of nitrogenous fertilizers. There are 57 fertilizer units manufacturing nitrogenous and complex nitrogen fertilizers. 29 for urea. That means there are 29 fertilizer units which produce urea and 9 produce ammonium sulfate as a byproduct, and there are 68 other small units producing single superphosphate. Today in India there are 10 public sector undertakings and one in the cooperative sector at Hazira in Gujarat, which is under the Fertilizer Corporation of India, that is the FCI. Okay. After the Green Revolution, what happened was that this industry expanded to the other parts of the country. First it was in Punjab, later it was expanded to other parts of the country. Okay. Then today Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab and Kerala contribute towards half the fertilizer requirement, fertilizer production. Okay. Other producers, other significant state producers are Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Goa, West Bengal, Delhi, Assam and Karnataka. So all this on a smaller scale, whereas in the main producers are Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh and Punjab. Now let's come to another important industry which is mineral based, that is cement industry. Cement industry is also mineral based industry. Why do you need cement? Cement is used in the construction of buildings, of bridges. So mainly it is used in the construction activity